This is an Alpina XB7, and it's the high-performance version of the BMW X7 luxury family SUV. Now that's a big deal because BMW has said there will be no M version of the X7, but this gets pretty close, with over 600 horsepower and a sticker price of over $150,000. And today I'm going to review the XB7. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my new enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era. We've had some great sales recently on Cars and Bids, including this manual Porsche Cayenne, which sold for over $32,000. This beautiful Jaguar F-Type R Coupe with tremendously low miles sold for $51,000. And this gorgeous silver over red Mercedes SL55 AMG, which sold for just over $25,000 after dozens of bids. If you're looking to sell your cool car, Cars and Bids is the place. And if you're looking to buy a cool car from the modern era, the 1980s and up, check out Cars and Bids daily auctions and amazing variety only at carsandbids.com. I've borrowed this XB7 from Crevier BMW here in Orange County in Southern California. Crevier BMW sells more BMWs than any BMW dealership in North America. And Crevier has all of the latest BMW models, including the new XB7, which has been very difficult to find in BMW dealerships across the United States. So let's talk XB7. Now, like I said, BMW has said that they won't make an M version of the X7 SUV, just like they won't make an M version of the 7 Series luxury sedan. It doesn't fit with the M brand image, according to BMW. So BMW gets around its own rule with Alpina, which is an independent company, but one that BMW works with to create factory-backed, almost M versions of its cars, like the Alpina B7, which is the 7 Series M that BMW won't make, and this, the Alpina XB7, the high-performance X7 SUV. So think of this as a BMW X7 that's been tuned with the factory's blessing and with a factory warranty. Now, the most power you can get from a regular BMW X7 is about 520 horsepower. This has over 610 horses and about 590 pound-feet of torque. Amazing numbers. And this does 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Under 4 seconds, 0 to 60 in a vehicle the size of a Lincoln Navigator or a Cadillac Escalade. It is mind-blowing. But then so is the price tag. These start around $145,000. This one has a sticker price of around $155,000 for a family SUV. Not that any of this is particularly shocking, really, because Mercedes-Benz already builds a 600 horsepower version of the GLS, which is its 3-row family SUV. There's a 700 horsepower version of the Dodge Durango, and the latest Tesla Model X does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. So this thing really is right at home in the world of ultra-high performance luxury family SUVs. And today, I'm going to review it. First, I'll take you on a tour of the XB7 and show you all of its interesting quirks and features. Then I'm going to get it out on the road and drive it, and then I'll give it a Doug score. Alright, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the Alpina XB7 by discussing some of the Alpina changes over the X7. That means starting with the wheels. Now the XB7 comes standard with 22s, but these are 23s. They are optional at a cost of $2,600 extra. 23-inch wheels, but I think they look fantastic. Although these aren't technically wheels. If you look at the window sticker, it describes these as Alpina CS16 per NFLTs, Sty. And I have to say, these are the best looking CS16 per NFLTs, Sty that I've seen in a while. And next up, another noticeable Alpina change comes to the front end of this car. Below the grille, you have a more aggressive front bumper design to make the car seem more muscular and more performance-y, which it is. You also have this giant Alpina badge facing forward, projecting out to make sure that everyone knows this is an Alpina. Although I must say, aside from this rather garish badge, this car is pretty subtle in a really good way. A lot of modern AMG and M models have all sorts of adornments and excess on the outside, outside to make sure you know what you're looking at. This really doesn't, aside from a few little things here and there that are just subtle enough so that people who know will know, except for the giant Alpina badge in front. Now, it is worth noting that one hallmark of Alpina has historically been weird stripes on the sides of its cars. 80s and 90s Alpina models have all sorts of stripes down the side, and it was very characteristic to Alpina. Well, the XB7 is also offered with these stripes, although not in the US market. So you can get your XB7 with the cool Alpina stripes, just not here. That's too bad. They are neat. And next up, we move under the hood for the most important change to the XB7, this twin-turbo V8 with more than 610 horsepower. That's a pretty healthy figure. This is the same engine in the top-of-the-line regular X7, but this has 90 more horsepower thanks to quite a few adjustments and changes made by Alpina. Now, one important thing, even though BMW insists they do not and will not make an X7M, that's pretty much what this is. The closest competitor to the X7 is the Mercedes GLS, and the AMG version of that car is almost identical on paper to the Alpina version of this. About the same horsepower, price, sizing, performance, it's all the same. It's just that BMW doesn't want to water down the M brand by making an M version of such a big family SUV. But if you're looking for the GLS AMG competitor in BMW world, that is definitely this, even though they didn't call it the X7M. And next up, we move inside the XB7. We have a few more Alpina changes. For instance, on the door sill, it says Alpina, and you can see it lights up. Very cool. You also have the Alpina logo on the controller for the infotainment system here in the center console. You twist it around, but the Alpina logo always stays up, again reminding you of your special Alpina. But the biggest change in this interior is the steering wheel, which is Alpina specific. It is very thick. It has this thick rim to feel really like a performance car should, and it has green stitching, which that I don't really understand. There is no green stitching anywhere else in this entire interior except on the steering wheel. Maybe you'd think green is one of Alpina's colors, but in their badge it's just blue, white, red, black, no green. So I'm not entirely sure why this car has green stitching. That, however, is not the only strange thing about the steering wheel. Even weirder than the green stitching is the shift paddle situation. You look behind the wheel where the paddles normally are, and you can see there's like a little button that says plus and minus. Now, to upshift and downshift, you don't press those. Instead, there's a button mounted behind those that you push, and that button upshifts or downshifts. Why no traditional shift paddles? I have no idea. Instead, you have little buttons whose presence is alerted to you by other little buttons. It is a very strange decision with the steering wheel of this car, but that's what they've done. The other important Alpina change in this car is in the center console near the infotainment controller. The lid for the cup holders, you can see, has this Alpina sort of plaque on it, again to remind you that you are in a special Alpina built BMW and not just a regular BMW like all the others. That plaque does make things a little cooler in here. But anyway, next up, beyond all the Alpina changes, let's move on to the back seat, because this is ultimately a family SUV, and so the back seat is very important. Now, this XB7 has rear captain's chairs in the second row, as you can see, and they are power operated. You press these little seat controls on the side, and you can move them backward, forward, and the backrest backward or forward, which is a very luxurious feature for second row seats in any SUV. In fact, there's a lot of power stuff back here. For instance, this little button on the door sill controls the sunshade. You press it, and then the sunshade over the entire panoramic sunroof will open or close at your whim. And speaking of the panoramic sunroof, yes, you see some blue in there to match the interior ambient lighting color. This XB7 has BMW's panoramic sky lounge feature, which provides color to the sunroof that you can see when you're like in a parking garage or when it's night. And you can see it here, sort of a blue ambient light in the sunroof, which is a very bizarre but rather interesting feature. And beyond that stuff, there are a lot of luxury features in the back of this car. For instance, you can see there are screens mounted on the backs of the front seats pointing towards the rear seat passengers, and these are full touch screens. You don't need a stupid remote like so many other cars. They're touch screens and they're very responsive. They do whatever you want, and they can show the weather if that's what you want to see. They can show traffic. They can show your current navigation, destination, and map. They're very useful screens. And you can also use this screen to change the ambient lighting color in the interior of this car. I showed you earlier it was blue, but you can use the screen to select from many different color options in here, which is a pretty cool touch. And of course, you can also use the screen for entertainment. You can see the headphone plug is down here in the center console area, and you can play movies or music or whatever using these screens as well. And by the way, speaking of the ports for the headphones, in this area, you can also see you have two USB-C charging ports, which are nice for charging devices, and you have a couple of cup holders here, but then you also have this rather ugly plastic center console piece, which says X7 on it, very proudly, very large. Kind of strange, especially considering this is not an X7, it's the XB7, but they kept that piece in anyway. It always has looked out of place in this luxurious back seat. And there's a lot more to cover once you get into the third row, although getting back here is kind of annoying. First, you lift up this latch like a lot of three-row vehicles, pretty easy, but then the seat automatically moves forward, which takes a second, and it's just kind of annoying to wait for it if you want to climb into the third row. Your kids are never really going to want to wait like 8, 10, 12 seconds each time. But anyway, once you climb in here, you discover that the third row in the XB7 is unbelievably luxurious for a third row, probably the most luxurious third row in the industry. Let me take you through some of the features. You have your own sunroof in the third row. Look at this, a third row specific sunroof. You have one panoramic roof over the first two rows and then one sunroof just for the third row passengers. You won't see that again. You can open or close the sunshade with this little button. Unfortunately, on the rear door, not really accessible to third row passengers, but there is a power sunshade over the third row specific sunroof. And check this out, mounted near the sunroof, you have climate controls just for the third row. This car has 5 zone climate controls, 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, and then 1 zone just for the third row passengers to choose their own temperature. You never see that. And you even have heated seats in the third row. This little button turns on the heated third row seats. I've never seen that in any car but this. There is an unbelievable level of attention on third row passengers back here, which is nice. It's a 3-row SUV and they're so often forgotten, but not in the XB7. And frankly, just the materials quality back here is nice. The leather is soft and supple, just like in the front 2 rows. And you even have a leather and stitched armrest on the side of the third row for resting your arm. A lot of automakers just leave it plastic since it's only kids who are going to be using it, but not in this car. Everything is nice back here. And one other interesting third row quirk, you can put down the third row seats automatically from several different positions in the car, including with these little switches behind the second row seats. So you open up the rear door and you can use these switches to put up or down the third row. That's pretty cool. And you have these switches on either side, left or right. So regardless of which way you're getting into the car, if you want to let someone into the third row and you realize, oh darn, the seat's down, you can just push the switch, the seat will go right back up. Very easy to do, impressive and convenient. But anyway, since we're talking third row seating, let's talk cargo area. First off, badging back here. You can see very subtle. Alpina on one side, XB7 on the other. No excessive, ridiculous badging to show everybody what this is. It's reasonably restrained. But anyway, getting back here to open up the tailgate, you can see you pop it open and only some of the tailgate opens up. There's still this part down here which stays in place. That's because this is a split tailgate. Now to open this, you press this little button on the top of the lower tailgate and then it automatically deploys and you have 2 tailgates open. Why do they do this? Well, they make it so you can open just the upper tailgate if you want to throw in a small item into the cargo area, and then you don't have to open the whole thing, which can be difficult in some parking situations. But they also make it 2 tailgates so that you can sit on the lower half. So if you want to have like a little picnic or a tailgate off of your vehicle, you can just sit back here and enjoy, which you can't do if the entire tailgate opens at once. That is kind of a neat trick. But anyway, let's move into the cargo area where one highlight is definitely the seat controls. You have an enormous number of seat controls in the cargo area, so you can put the seats up or down. Now you can control the second row seats back here. This little switch will move the second row seat forward or backwards corresponding to the seat that you're pressing the switch for, which is a pretty cool feature. A lot of SUVs with 3 rows only let you put the second row down, but you have to actually walk up to the seat and pull it back up. Not here. You can move it all around using these switches. And of course, same deal with the third row. You press this set of switches and you can move the third row seats down or up, again, depending on exactly what configuration you want the car in. One really neat touch here is there are individual buttons you can press if you want all the seats raised, and you press max seats, or if you want as much luggage room as possible, you press max luggage. And of course, pressing max luggage will lower the third row and move the second row seats as far forward as possible. Max seats does the opposite. It puts all the seats in place. Having those like shortcut buttons is a nice feature because often that's what you want to do. Max out your cargo room or your passenger space, and you don't want to hold down each individual button to do it. Now, when you go to close the tailgate, you just press the little tailgate button, and as you can see, both tailgates close together. So you don't have to do the lower one first and then the upper one. They will both close at the same time automatically like a luxury SUV should. But anyway, back up front for some more interesting quirks and features. I want to start with the shifter, which is just cool. It's this like clear crystal looking thing with the X for X7 hidden inside, and you can see it reflecting on multiple levels, and it's blue to match the ambient lighting color in the car right now, which just looks really cool. You change the ambient lighting color and that X will change color too. That's pretty neat. Also in the center console, if you lift up the little lid with the Alpina plaque, you can see the cup holders are heated or cooled. Press these little buttons to heat or cool them, and they even turn the color of whatever you're doing. So blue for cooled, red for heated, also a pretty cool feature. And another cool lighting feature happens on the doors. When you have the car on and you open up a door, you can see the ambient lighting starts blinking in red to alert people that could be coming up that a door is open, which is a neat touch. If you close the door, the ambient lighting color turns back to the color of the rest of the interior, but when the door is open, it blinks in red as a safety feature, which is nice. And next up, moving on to some interesting quirks and features of the infotainment system. This car has this amazing 3D camera feature, which like shows you an entire view from the outside of the car, exactly what you're doing, which can make parallel parking or driving in a small space tremendously easy, despite this car's large size. And check it out, the camera system even shows this exact car in this exact color with these exact wheels. I'm not sure if they programmed that or if we just got lucky, but that is a cool feature, seeing the exact car in the computer in the center of the car. And another excellent feature of this infotainment system, BMW has a feature called gesture control, which means you don't even have to touch the screen in order to make certain changes to what's happening. For instance, right now I am moving the volume up or down on the radio just by moving my finger in a circular motion near the infotainment screen. It can read that motion and it knows that motion is set to change the volume. There are several different preset motions that do various things in this screen, or you can set certain custom motions to also do various things, but it is cool. You don't even have to touch the screen. That's the level of future that we're on. Next up, there are some interesting apps in this infotainment system. One is called Automatic Window, and that allows you to set your driver's window to roll down when you reach a certain GPS coordinate. Kind of a weird thing, but I guess they're thinking maybe you drive on the highway, you want the windows up, but as soon as you get off, you want them to come down. You can program the car to do that if it's like on your commute home. Kind of strange, but they allow it. You also have this drive recorder feature, which basically is a built-in dash cam. I'm seeing more and more dash cams in cars. Tesla has them, General Motors, and a few BMWs, and it uses the camera system on the outside of the car to record while you drive, which of course can be useful later if you're in an accident and there's some question over fault. I love seeing built-in dash cams. I think all cars should have them, and it's neat that this one does. With that said, this infotainment system, BMW's, is pretty good, but not the best. I like it, very responsive to your touch, pretty intuitive, but it just isn't as comprehensive as Mercedes-Benz, that allowing you to see various things displayed at one time. The screen isn't as large as Mercedes-Benz. It doesn't give you as many options on various different screens. You have to go deeper into menus to find stuff. It's just not quite as good as Mercedes-Benz, or frankly Audi. Both of those have a bit of a leg up. That's especially true with the gauge cluster situation in this car, which is nowhere near as configurable as Mercedes or Audi. You do have a full screen gauge cluster, but you just can't do as much with it as you can in the rival German luxury brands. I would say of the big three German brands, BMW definitely third in terms of infotainment at the current time. By the way, one interesting item in the gauge cluster, you can see this little piece kind of stuck in the middle. That is a camera that monitors the driver, and it controls a driver assist system that will take over control of the steering, the braking, the accelerating, as long as the driver is looking forward under a lot of conditions. That's BMW's version of an automated driving system, similar to Tesla Autopilot and Cadillac Super Cruise, and it works pretty well. And so those are the quirks and features of the Alpina XB7. Now it's time to get this out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the Alpina XB7. Now, I have always liked the X7. I think it's the best of these three-row luxury SUVs, just because the appointments are so nice, the materials, the quality, I think it looks great. It has a lot of great features and tech. The new Mercedes GLS is nice, but I think they kind of mailed it in. They just sort of evolved the current one, and then the X7 came out, and in my opinion, sort of destroyed it. But now you have this one with 600 horsepower, and so that makes it even more impressive. Now, driving this thing around, first impression is that it's really excellent even before you start getting into the performance aspect of it. So I'm driving this and, you know, it's very comfortable in here, which is a hallmark of the X7. It feels luxury car quiet in here. Again, a hallmark of the X7. The ride quality is fantastic. The materials are great, like I mentioned before. Again, very nice looking SUV. All the great benefits of the X7 and the Alpina X7, and I will attempt a little accelerating. Oh. I cannot believe I am doing this in a vehicle this size. Oh my God, that's fast. Wow. You know, I'm a big wagon fan, but this might just be the best all-around vehicle, because in 3 rows, it gives you a lot more room than in any traditional wagon, and my God, that acceleration, I mean, this is sports car acceleration. It's so fast. It is quickly apparent, driving this car, that it doesn't quite have sports car handling. It is better than you'd expect, and I'll tell you, I just recently drove the Escalade, and there's no performance version of the Escalade, so they're not trying for performance, but that car it's very ponderous when you go around corners, and it's amazing that you get into this, which is a competitor, a direct competitor, and it feels so much more stable. Man, sitting in here, I mean, this is just this car is just fantastic. There's like nothing it can't do well. It doesn't handle like a sports car. It doesn't brake like a sports car probably as well. But it does, it's closer than you think considering all the other benefits you get from this car. And it's amazing to me the level of modern performance SUVs. They have really been able to create this sports car feel and this high quality feel and this, you know, family usability feel. And you start to understand why so many people have SUVs. They're just so competent at so many things. Man, I love this thing, and I was really not expecting it to. I was not expecting to love it all that much, actually. I mean, it's a ridiculous vehicle. Come on. Overall, really impressive, I think. You have amazing tech, which I showed you before. You have great styling in the X7 in general. You have all the wonderful luxury features of the regular X7, and you have the performance of this. And I have to tell you, this car actually rides, this might be controversial, but I think it rides about as well as a regular X7. I don't notice a huge distinction between the ride of this vehicle and the regular one, even though this is on like massive wheels and performance suspension. This car, it's just a great all-rounder, but you're paying an enormous amount of money for the privilege of having all these things in one vehicle. And so that's the Alpina XB7. This is a truly impressive vehicle. Really, really excellent if you need over 600 horsepower in your family SUV. If you don't, you probably view this as overpriced, overpowered, and just frankly ridiculous. But take comfort in knowing the people who buy this vehicle, they probably don't really care what you think. Anyway, now it's time to give the XB7 a Doug score. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the XB7 is a handsome SUV, except for that grille, that big grille. It is growing on me, maybe literally, but it's been the subject of some scorn, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Acceleration 0 to 60 is just under 4 seconds, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Handling is fine, but not quite high-performance SUV great. This is fast, but in terms of handling, it's no Urus or Cayenne Turbo, and it gets a 5 out of 10. Fun factor, same deal. It's fast and sort of fun, but not crazily so, and it gets a 5 out of 10. Cool factor, this is cooler than a normal X7, but I really think they should badge it as an M. I personally don't think it would dilute the M brand any more than they already have diluted it with other models, and it would make this even cooler. As is, it gets a 5 out of 10 for a total weekend score of 29 out of 50. Next up are the daily categories and features. This has a ton of equipment, amazingly so, and it gets a 9 out of 10. Comfort is excellent, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Same with quality. Fantastic materials basically everywhere, not quite Rolls or Bentley level, but very strong, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Practicality is also excellent given the seating and cargo cargo capacity, and he gets a 9 out of 10. Finally, value. This really does it all, but at a big price. $140,000 or more is huge money, and I suspect these will lose value fast. It gets a 5 out of 10 for a total daily score of 39 out of 50. Added up, and the Doug score is 68 out of 100, which places it here against relevant cars. This really is a great all-around vehicle, scoring very well in weekend and daily categories. I just wish it was a little cheaper.